Hey there, and welcome. Oh, wait a second, it's Monday. What am I doing here Monday in front of you guys? Well, at the end of the last episode of Large Format Friday, I put my email out there saying if you had any questions about large format, go ahead and shoot me an email. But I did warn you, if there were some good ones, I was going to put it on air. And I was really surprised with the response I got. I got tons of good questions from all across the world, and I wanted to share the answers to some of those in a way that some folks can benefit from that answer. So if you have a similar question in the world of large format, here come the answers for those. So this first question comes from Ronan in France, and he says, do you have any advice on how to store 4x5 exposed films for a 1 or 2 month trip? I saw your video on large format trip advice. You mentioned using a black plastic bag. Is there a way to store them for a longer period stacked together in a light, tight bag? He's new to large format and can't wait to use his new Graflex crown graphic on holiday, mainly shoots black and white, and bought some Fomapan 100. Well, thanks for that question, Ronan. It's a really good one. If you're taking a trip that's 1 month or longer, you definitely want to bring with you some 1 or 2 empty film boxes. I might even recommend several if you plan on going through a lot of film. So if you don't have empty film boxes, you can also use ones for photographic paper, but just know the design of large format film boxes is in a triple clamshell. So there's 3 half boxes and one folds down and the other one folds down on top of that, and that's how your film's going to go in. And depending on what brand of film you're using, it's either going to come in a foil envelope with these 2 like cardboard sheets. Sometimes they'll even have the notch code so you know which film. They'll come like this, or they'll have a black plastic bag like this with a little folder. Just because these boxes are mainly for like 10 to 25 sheets doesn't mean you can't put more in there. I found a 10 sheet box or a 25 sheet box can usually handle upwards of 30 sheets before the envelope gets too squished and it doesn't fit in the lid. But if you plan on shooting more than 30 sheets of film, I'd recommend getting a hold of a paper box or like a Fuji 20 sheet box, which is really very close to the same size as a Kodak 50 sheet box. I brought one of these with me to Africa back in 2018, and it was great because I could take all of my other film boxes and consolidate it. So I took a bunch of 10 sheet packs of Portra and I loaded them into a 50 sheet box just for efficiency space. See, this is a 10 sheet box. The 10 sheet box is a little more than half the thickness of the 20 and 50 sheet boxes. So that works really well. But in regards to the plastic bag, these are not light tight on their own. They're gonna need to be in at least a double clamshell, maybe triple clamshell. And if you do stack emulsions, like you mix and match the emulsions in the envelope, you're gonna have to sort through that later. So that can be a downside, but it is possible. If you do have a film that comes with the dividers that has the notch code on it, all you have to do is kind of run your finger over, and if it doesn't all feel the same, you know you have a weird emulsion in there and you can keep that separated. So I like to do a different box for each emulsion. I'll usually limit myself to 1 or 2 emulsions for a trip, but I've actually never done a large format trip that was longer than 2 to 3 weeks. So just keep that in mind too. So thanks again for the question. Okay, so this next question we got, the name looks familiar on here. This is from a commenter that I have seen on many previous videos, Mr. Norbert from Germany, and he writes, as traveling with large format, I recently uploaded a little posting to the Facebook Linhof user group. From comments to my posting, I conclude that there's more of us who like cycling with large format. That is a relief to hear, Norbert. I don't actually know anybody here in the US that cycles with their large format camera. And this might be the first I'm seeing of people traveling on a bike with their large format camera. I know a few folks who travel via motorcycle with their large format kit, and honestly, I think that's awesome. It's a really good bout of exercise cycling there and then hauling your large format gear, but it is just a really nice thing to kind of pare down your kit to something that works really effectively and then get out there and be in nature. So that's really cool. So I'm gonna post some links to that Facebook group for the Linhof users. And keep it up, guys. And finally, I have one last question, and this one's also from the EU. You guys are just kicking butt today. And this is from Matthias, and he says, I would like to know if you have experience or know somebody using the land film processor in the EU, since the power is 110, and here in the EU we use 220, 240. And he's talking in regards to the 8x10 Polaroid processor. Basically, the question is will this work with a converter, or is there something else to keep in mind in order not to burn the processor? You know, it's funny that you mentioned that, Matthias, because I've actually burned out one of those processors before just using a non-grounded supply here in the US. And I'm not too sure about the requirements on that processor, but I know how to answer your question. I'll be right back. Oh, this is a big boy. Oh, he's big. All right, so this is the processor in question. This is the Polaroid 8x10 roller transport processor. It's big and heavy mainly because on the inside here, there are these giant stainless steel rollers that pull the sheets of 8x10 Polaroid together. There's definitely gonna be a video on 8x10 Polaroid. I mean, I have one of these. I love shooting this format. It's pretty rare anymore, but it is one of the few instant films that's out there. So there's gonna be a comprehensive video on this coming in the future. But anyway, this processor is very picky. I found that it was really easy to trip a breaker on this, and I think it's because it has just very, very strict power requirements. I checked the user manual, and it turns out that there are two different models of this. There is a US model, which is 110 only, and then there is an international model, which is set up upwards of 240. But if I flip this guy over, I know I have the USA model because it shows me right there. So 120 VAC, and it needs precisely 3.5 amps. So if you are going through a converter, I would recommend making sure that that converter can put out a very, very clean amperage, and 50, 60 hertz is gonna be the requirement for that. So just keep those in mind. I'm also gonna link down below to a PDF version of the manual for this, so you have reference for that. But I would say the best bet would be to look for an EU model that is good for 240 instead of the 120, because I have popped one of these on a non-grounded line and it worked for a while, and then literally, I think like the third or fourth shot, I heard a sizzle, and then all of a sudden, right around here where the circuit board is, I saw some smoke come out. I just want to thank everybody again for responding really well to those questions. I've gotten a decent enough response that I actually changed out the email that we can use for this one. So if you have questions about large format photography, you can email largeformatquestions@gmail.com. It's easy to remember, largeformatquestions@gmail.com for anything large format. As I get enough of them, I'll have response videos like this showing up periodically. So one last thing, today is National Camera Day. I don't know if it's International Camera Day, but I saw the hashtag trending and thought I would chime in about it. So what do we do on National Camera Day? Well, here's some recommendations from nationaldaycalendar.com, and they say, if you want to celebrate, learn more about photography. Take a class, take an online workshop, teach somebody else the joys of photography, show them how to get better with the camera they have, or maybe show them your large format camera setup. Or if you want to, you can just try a different style of photography. So instead of taking out that large format camera, maybe pick up that 110 or that 127 camera and give it a go. I bet you're still gonna make good photos with it. So that does it for today. Stay tuned for the next Large Format Friday, and catch you then.